What's up guys, Lifting here. Welcome back to the 5th video in this series where we talk about what kind of stats or affixes one should want to get on an item in order for it to be either good, useful or valuable. In this episode we'll be talking about the ever important helmet armor piece, because you don't want to get an arrow in your eye or your knee for that matter. Keep in mind that the stats or properties one wants on his or her equipment of course depends on the build that you're running. But the stats that I'm going to recommend to you here in this video is most likely always going to be either good or useful for your character or valuable to sell to other characters. Also remember that any rare item can have a total of 6 affixes, where 3 of those are prefixes and the remaining 3 suffixes. In order to get a really good item you need the 6 most attractive or useful affixes that an item can roll. Besides rolling the right affixes, you also want to roll the highest tier of these affixes. Depending on the item level of the item, you are able to roll different tiers of the prefixes and suffixes. And you could say that in general, the higher item level, the better tier of the affixes you can roll on the item. So let's get started with the helmets. As any other equipment, the base type of helmets comes in armor, evasion and energy shield. And then in between you have the hybrid ones, the armor energy shield, armor evasion and evasion energy shield types. And the main difference of these base types is that they roll different properties. Armor-based helmets can roll increases to armor, strength and intelligence. Evasion-based helmets can roll increases to evasion, dexterity and intelligence as well. And energy shield-based helmets can roll increases to energy shield, intelligence and mana. And as you probably already know, a pure armor, evasion or energy shield-based helmet can roll higher of the respective defensive property compared to the hybrid versions. And it is for that same reason that most people prefer to either use or buy a non-hybrid helmet. And that is simply because most people prefer to focus on only one form of damage mitigation. And for those situations, pure base types are the better choice. So let's take a look at the prefixes and suffixes that these helmets can roll. And we're going to start with the prefixes. And for prefixes you can see that a helmet, depending on its base type, is able to roll local flat armor, evasion or energy shield rating, local armor, evasion and energy shield rating, and local armor, evasion and energy shield plus base stun recovery. And then you have things such as local targeted minion gem levels. We have base item rarity, increase the maximum life, and mana if it is on an energy shield base. Once again, remember that a rare helmet can only have 3 prefixes, and the 3 most useful or valuable prefixes on this list is local armor, evasion or energy shield, increase the maximum life, and lastly either mana or flat armor, evasion or energy shield added. For suffixes you have the options of rolling accuracy rating, and then a hybrid light radius accuracy rating roll, additional strength, dexterity or intelligence depending on the base type, increased item rarity, life regeneration, fire, cold or lightning resistances, chaos resistance, and reduced attribute requirements, and increased stun recovery. And the 3 most useful or valuable of these suffixes are either of the elemental resistances, added attributes, and lastly chaos resistance. And one can of course argue that item rarity can have its merit and value as well. And the thing is, helmets are pretty straightforward. In most cases you simply want to improve the base defense that it provides and typically get life and try resistance rolls, or at least dual resistance rolls with either added chaos resistances or added attribute rolls. And the ideal affixes on a helmet would therefore look something like this: increased armor, evasion or energy shield, local armor, evasion and energy shield, increased maximum life, fire resistance, cold resistance and lightning resistances. So try res here. And another example of a valuable helmet would be something like increased armor, evasion and energy shield, increased maximum life and increased mana. And then for the suffixes you would have something like lightning resistances, cold resistances, and instead of having that tri-elemental resistance you would have chaos resistances or strength, dexterity and intelligence added. And you should of course keep in mind that if your character is using chaos inoculation, then you obviously don't want to roll life as a prefix on your helmet, but instead increases to energy shield as the prefix rolls. Another thing to keep in mind that I also mentioned in the previous video is that an item does not always necessarily need to have 6 properties or affixes in order to be good. Having a helmet with life, increased armor, evasion or energy shield along with dual resistance rolls sells pretty easy depending on the tier rolls of the affixes of course. If an item has room for an additional prefix or suffix roll, people sometimes use an exalt orb in the hopes of getting that last good suffix or prefix roll. Now lastly, let me show you a real example of a helmet on PoE trait that I consider having at least a decent value. And with this example, you'll notice that this helmet has all the ideal prefix and suffix rolls, so life, flat armor, and percentage increases to armor. Those are the prefixes. For suffixes, it has managed to roll tri-resist rolls, so fire, cold, and lightning. Basically, this helmet has rolled all the valuable prefix and suffixes, and the cheer rolls, I'd say, are decent. And as I said before, helmets are fairly straightforward. As long as you have increased armor, evasion, or energy shield, life, and at least dual resistances, they can typically be sold. And I would of course like to tell you a specific price for these types of items, but you know, there are way too many variables to take into consideration. But hopefully this video has helped to give you a basic understanding of when a helmet has the potential at least to be valuable. And I will leave a link to poemods.com in the description. In here you can look up the specific items and see what kind of affixes it can roll and what item level they require to get good cheer rolls. Anyway guys, I hope you found this useful. Remember to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?